Global urgency on sustainable solutions, digitally connected infrastructure, and rapidly advancing novel technologies has ushered aerospace into an exciting period of innovation, arguably not experienced since the dawn of aviation. Join us as we explore today's dynamic industry with distinguished visionaries, changemakers, policy creators, and the innovative ideas that are cultivating new frontiers across aviation, space, and defense. This is Wheels Up, the future of flight, with Alex Ramirez.
Welcome to our latest episode of Wheels Up, Future of Flight. I'm your host, Alex Ramirez, President, Collinear Group. It's an incredible time in aviation, space, and defense as the industry continues to reimagine itself with new and novel technologies in areas like sustainable aviation, advanced air mobility, and commercial space travel. This rapidly evolving landscape also has the aerospace supply chain on the cusp of transformative change. Challenges such as increasing global competition, rising material costs, and a new generational workforce are shifting traditional supply chain paradigms. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Nikki Malcom, CEO and Executive Director of the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance, or PNAA, a trade organization whose mission is to support the global competitiveness of the Pacific Northwest aerospace supply chain community. She's passionate about helping inspire young people to join the aerospace industry and volunteers on multiple education and workforce advisory boards, as well as STEM program development. Welcome, Nikki. Your passion for the industry and community is an inspiration to many, myself included. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you for inviting me to be on. I am very passionate about, encouraging the next generation of people because it was such a big part of my life and starting the industry young.
Well, that's a great segue into my first question. Can you share a little bit about your own journey and history with the industry? I mean, how did you get into it?
Yes, of course. I get asked this question a lot, and I kind of wish I had a better story for it, but I went to a temp agency and was looking for a job when I was 18 years old, and thankfully they placed me at ThyssenKrupp Aerospace as a filing administrator. At that point in time when we still used paper and still had to staple it together. And so that's how I started my career almost a little over 24 years ago. I started out and have worked in various roles throughout that time, from purchasing and supply chain to outside processing to business development. Was about 17 years of that, selling metal, doing testing, and a little less than 2.5 years ago, taking on the role of CEO at PNAA after I had been on the board for about 5 years prior to that. So it's been an amazing variety of work and so much fun to learn.
It's an incredible journey and story. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure an inspiration to many. So, and fortunate for the industry that, you got that temp job. So now we're here.
Absolutely.
Now, for our listeners that may not be familiar with PNAA, can you share a little bit about the organization, the mission of the organization, and your personal vision for PNAA?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. So funny enough, PNAA has also existed for 24 years. So we've had somewhat of a parallel timeline. It was all meant to be. And it was originally formed by a group of gentlemen that wanted to find a way to bring the community together and find a way to collectively go after work and see what we could do to be globally competitive, everywhere, right? And at the time when it was started, the Pacific Northwest was really the main hub for aerospace supply chain. And as you know, that landscape has shifted significantly. We're still the largest, one of the largest, and the best, of course. But that landscape has shifted globally to where we have a global presence everywhere for aerospace. And part of our mission is to make sure that we know what it's going to take for this region to stay globally competitive as that landscape continues to shift, whether that be where the work is being done or how the work is being done. We talk a lot about technology, you and I, and, helping our ecosystem understand what it takes to continue to be the best in the world, the best aerospace manufacturing ecosystem in the world. And my personal vision is that we do this as a community, that we do it side by side with each other. And we've seen a big example of that lately in the fact that with some of the challenges in the supply chain, collaboration is more important than it's ever been before. And so my personal mission is to make sure that that collaboration happens within our community so that we can have strength in numbers and work through the challenges and the opportunities together as a community here in the Pacific Northwest.
That's a great overview of the organization. It is PNAA is just fantastic, Nikki. And as you know, the community aspect is just, everybody really looking out for each other and trying to help lift everybody, within the community is such a great organization. So kudos to you for what you've built in the community aspect. You can definitely feel it in the organization. Now, PNAA Advance is the big, regional conference happening here in Seattle, right? And it's happening next week, February 8th or 5th through the 8th. And it's the biggest West Coast regional industry event of the year. What's the history behind the event and anything that has you particularly excited about this year's installment?
Oh my gosh, this is our 23rd year doing this conference, right? So again, we've been building this for a very long time. I think I've been attending the conference for somewhere around 13 years. And so, I think it started with 35 or 40 people at the very first one, up to, we're expecting about 500 next week. And so the growth for that conference has been incredible. And it's been very exciting to see and be a part of what that growth looks like. And every year it's something different because, as you know, the industry is always changing and we have new entrants to the market, especially with space and eVTOL and some of the really exciting things that I'm looking forward to this year. As always, I'm very excited to hear from our top analysts, Kevin Michaels, Richard Abalafia, Ron Epstein, Christine Lewag on the financial side. And then this year, there's one panel that I have to say that I'm so excited about because it's going to talk about what makes people tick, how they think. And it's observing a study that was done that looks at how aerospace manufacturing executives make decisions strategically versus how tech executives make them strategically. And personally, I love thinking about how people tick and hearing about how people tick and looking at how, typically the evolution of aerospace is iterative, and it has to be because of the quality that we have to meet and all of the restrictions that exist as a result of making things safe. And so looking at how they do things differently because tech is fast and they have accessibility to supply most times, and just looking at how we could adopt some of the methods of things to make things evolve a little bit more quickly without losing the quality standard that we have as an industry. That's one that I'm very excited about. And then the eVTOL one, and looking at how, industrializing their supply chain, because no matter which way you cut it, we're going to need more capacity in the supply chain. And we need to have a really open conversation about how we're doing that as an ecosystem. So I'm very excited about that one as well.
Wow. It sounds like a pretty full packed agenda that you have from some pretty fascinating and insightful panels. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, one of the things that you just said was every year is something different. The theme for this year's PNAA Advance is Beyond Limits, Envisioning Tomorrow's Aerospace Supply Chain. What was the inspiration behind the theme?
Yeah, so I'm sure that you can relate. Right now, everything feels like we're doing things very reactively because everything is busy and everything's coming back online, and production rates are ramping up. And this is the opportunity for us to step back for 3 days and look at the long game, look at what the next 20, 25 years of the ecosystem looks in a way that we don't necessarily get to do in our day-to-day roles because everything is so busy and we're just trying to keep our heads above water, quite frankly. And so this is just, how do we look at the long game and how do we set our strategy for the next year, next 10 years, next 15 years in a way that helps us remain globally competitive?
Wow, that should be fun again to hear what everybody has to say, and
it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, everybody's going to have some interesting takeaways from this conference, no doubt. Now,
I hope so. That's a really important part for me, is that there's not only the information base that you get from the analysts, but we've tried to schedule the agenda in a way that it's, you get the information, but then you also get the strategies, the actual things that you can take home and implement and inspire you to keep that energy up throughout the year and not just that 3 or 4 days.
I can without question say, Nikki, that every PNAA event advance that I've been to, I always leave with some nuggets of information for our business that have been transformational, right? So anybody that's planning to attend, I'm sure will feel the same this year, especially this year. Lots
Thank
going
you.
on in the industry.
There is.
Now, beyond your professional contributions, you clearly have a passion for STEM education and predominantly our next generation of industry workforce and leaders. It just shines through every time we talk about it. What are you most excited about and also most concerned about for this up and coming labor workforce?
Yeah, I'm most excited about the fact that, everything that we've done. So we won the Innovation Cluster Acceleration Program, and we just recently were awarded the second part of that. That's breaking news. And a big part of what we're doing there is looking at how we promote and how we market the industry. And one of the things that's always concerned me is that a lot of times when you talk to people outside of the industry, the only roles that they know about in aerospace are engineer and pilot. Mm-hmm. So most of the times people end up self-selecting out of thinking that they might want a career in aerospace because they're like, well, I'm not good at math and I don't want to fly a plane. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is there's thousands of jobs in between that. And my, soapbox is that no matter what your passion is, there's a job in aerospace for that. And I challenge people all the time to say, what's your passion? And I'll tell them a role in it. And that's what's really exciting to me, is that we have a large community of people coming together to look at how we create a campaign to make aerospace really attractive to people who might not historically get the opportunity or see the opportunity for aerospace. Because oftentimes, if you talk to people in the aerospace industry and you ask them, how did you get in the industry? Well, they knew somebody, right? Mm-hmm. And that limits the amount of people and, quite frankly, the type of diversity that we get in the industry. And so the idea that we can get out there and tap into markets and to people that we don't historically talk to is really exciting to me. And the challenges are that what the industry thinks that young people want in a career is vastly different than what we're hearing from the young people wanting in a career. We will have a youth panel actually at the conference specifically for the point that I want the audience to hear about directly from the young people, what that looks like and what they're looking for. An example, we were talking to them the other day, and 2 of the 3 panelists said, I want to work remotely. And the third person is a machinist. And, it's that conversation of, how do you balance whether it's fair or not for people to work from home when the people who are machining the parts have to be in the office? And just looking at, I think that there needs to be some serious realignment of what the industry thinks the workforce wants versus what they actually want. That's the biggest concern that I have.
Interesting. Yeah. And, again, you personally and PNAA does so much, community outreach and getting out there with different, community events and functions. So PNAA does a lot more than Advance, right? I mean, everybody knows about PNAA Advance because it's such a big regional event, but can you share more about some of the events that go on throughout the year to kind of get the word out of aerospace and everything that's going on during this exciting period?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we have coming up that's starting right after the week after the conference is we're doing a Present Like a Pro. And that is a cohort. It'll be a 6-week cohort that we're doing with Rebecca Murray, where we're teaching people communication and presentation skills. One of the things that we did through the cluster work is we identified that people are lacking some soft skills training that they need, because a lot of times the people that have been within the companies need to get promoted, but don't necessarily have some of the soft skills that are needed to obtain those types of promotions. So we're hoping to talk to and reach into our member base for the people who's your next leader that you really want to help get that better communication and presentation skills, and get them in a cohort that's not only going to give them college level communication and presentation skills, but it's also going to give them the opportunity to network with other, next generation leaders in the industry, which is going to drive home my community importance very much. So I'm very excited about that. And our second biggest event of the year is our Women in Aerospace event. That's on May 16th. And that is one that has also grown exponentially. We started out with about 60 people, and last year we had a little less than 300. I expect that to grow even more this year. And there's such an appetite for a space for women to come together and talk about some of the challenges and opportunities, and really how we reach down to that next generation of young girl and young women and bring them up into the industry.
Yeah, that PNAA Women in Aerospace event is so special, right? I mean, we had an opportunity to participate in it last year, and just acknowledging, celebrating, and inspiring that next generation of leaders is so paramount to the future of our industry, like you just mentioned, Nikki. And you're clearly an inspiration to many. Who in the industry, that you look up to as leaders that have inspired you, and why?
Oh, goodness. Well, let me start with you, Alex, because ever since that we've met, your dedication to the community inspires me and keeps me going, right? Every time I meet someone like you that's also dedicated, it gives me a little bit of a boost to keep doing what I'm doing. And really, a lot of the leaders that helped develop me, I started in the industry when I was 18. I was kind of a little jerk, and they saw something in me, and they helped develop me and had some tough conversations with me occasionally about it. And so Bonnie Jackson, I should say, she's at Boeing now, but we work together. She's a huge inspiration to me. One of my former bosses, Dave Smith. These are people that are not super visible in the industry, but they've been really meaningful in my life. And of course, Melanie Jordan, who was the predecessor of PNAA, is the consummate professional that has and still does to this day, takes my calls to mentor me on how to do this job. So she's a huge inspiration to me for sure.
Yeah, no, the meaningful people are the ones that make the biggest impact in your personal journey, right? So I know I have my share of folks as well. So, so Nikki, thank you so much for joining us here and spending some time to share about your thought leadership and PNAA and PNAA Advance. If folks want to get in touch with you to learn more about you, PNAA, how do they get in contact with you or the organization?
Yeah, so our website is pnaa.net. Make sure it's net and not com. And you can reach out to me personally. My email address is nmalcom, NMALCOM @pnaa.net.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Nikki, for joining us and sharing your inspiring story, your industry thought leadership. Can't wait for PNAA Advance next week. And for anybody that's listening, don't miss PNAA Advance happening next week, February 5th through 8th here in Seattle, Washington. And please join us for the next episode of Wheels Up, Future of Flight, as we explore today's dynamic industry with distinguished visionaries, change makers, and policy creators. Thank you. Until next time.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To capture all the latest from Wheels Up, Future of Flight, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes or visit us at collineargroup.com.